When Thomas Ashford inherited his grandmother's mansion, he thought the worst part would be the silence. He didn't know she'd left something behind, 19 porcelain dolls, each one with lungs that whispered in the dark. If you've ever walked into a room and felt every eye turn toward you, even when you were alone, stay till the end. Because this story will make you question what a home remembers, and what it keeps breathing for. When Thomas Ashford drove up the long gravel path to his grandmother's estate, the trees bowed toward the road like mourners. He hadn't been there in years, not since he was a child. The Ashford mansion sat on a hill overlooking the small town of Millhaven, its windows like half-closed eyes, sunken and watchful. His grandmother, Margaret Ashford, had passed 3 months earlier. She'd been the family's matriarch, the kind of woman who spoke softly, but whose words carried the weight of generations. She'd outlived her husband, her children, and even 2 of her grandchildren. Only Thomas remained. He'd come to clear out the house before it was sold. 3 floors, 16 rooms, and 1 locked attic he'd never seen inside. The air inside smelled faintly of lavender and dust. Every clock was still ticking, synchronized, somehow, despite decades of disuse. And on the mantel, beside a faded family portrait, stood a single porcelain doll. Pale, perfect, eyes painted a deep, reflective blue. When he picked it up, it felt warm. The first night passed quietly. Thomas unpacked in the guest room, made a simple dinner, and told himself the unease he felt was just nostalgia mixed with grief. But around 2:14 a.m., he woke to a sound, soft, shallow, rhythmic. Breathing. It came from the hallway outside his door. When he turned on the lamp, it stopped. He waited, listening, and after a minute, he heard it again. This time, closer. A faint inhale, exhale, as if someone stood just behind the wall, mimicking sleep. He opened the door. Nothing. The hallway stretched empty, carpet swallowing his footsteps. But the air, it was warm, like someone had just passed through. The next morning, he found the doll from the mantel sitting on his nightstand. He began exploring the house room by room, trying to ignore how the air changed from floor to floor. The east wing, his grandmother's private quarters, was colder, somehow untouched by time. Her study was immaculate. Shelves of journals, each labeled only by year. And then he found it, the doll room. It was small, almost hidden behind a tapestry in the hall. Inside, sunlight fell through lace curtains, landing on 19 porcelain dolls, each one seated neatly on wooden chairs, facing the door. Each with blue glass eyes. Each identical to the one on his nightstand. A nameplate rested beneath each doll. Eleanor. Grace. Clara. Beatrice. And so on. He thought they were family heirlooms, until he saw the last one. The nameplate read, Margaret. His grandmother's name. That night, Thomas locked the door to his room. He couldn't shake the image of those dolls sitting silently in formation, watching. He dreamed of them moving, slight twitches, shallow breaths, porcelain chests rising like the swell of sleep. When he woke, sweat slicked his face. The door to his room was open. And the doll named Margaret sat in the chair by his bed. He threw it across the room. The porcelain didn't break, it thudded, as though something inside softened the impact. He ran to pick it up, heart hammering, and realized what he'd heard earlier wasn't just his imagination. The doll's chest was rising. Slowly. Gently. Breathing. He dropped it and stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. The doll rolled, coming to rest upright, head tilted toward him. Its glass eyes gleamed faintly blue in the dark. Thomas didn't sleep again that night. He dove into his grandmother's journals the next day. Her handwriting was neat, elegant, increasingly frantic with the passing years. Early entries spoke of grief, the loss of her husband, her children, and eventually her mind's decline. But then, scattered between normal pages, came the darker ones. They shouldn't have taken them from me. The body fails, but breath can be borrowed. Porcelain holds memory, the lungs remember how. Thomas read on, horrified. Each entry after a death in the family aligned with a new name etched under a doll. Eleanor breathed again tonight. Her eyes followed the moonlight. Gray still dreams. Clara asked for Mother. His hands trembled as he turned the final page. I have prepared the 19th. It will be mine. And when my lungs fail, I will breathe through her until Thomas comes home. He stared at the words until they blurred. That night, the breathing didn't come from the hallway. It came from everywhere. He barricaded himself in the study, clutching a fireplace poker. The air throbbed with sound, soft inhales and exhales overlapping, echoing off the walls. The dolls were moving, he could hear it. Porcelain tapping wood, the slow creak of tiny chairs. Then, silence. Until a whisper. Thomas. It came from the doll named Margaret, her voice dry, distant, yet unmistakably human. He swung the poker, smashing its head. Porcelain cracked, and beneath the shattered shell, something wet moved. A shriveled mass, grey and soft, pulsing faintly. Lungs. Real, human lungs. He gagged and swung again, but the others began to move. One by one, their heads turned toward him, eyes glowing faintly blue, the same shade as his grandmother's. The air filled with their overlapping breaths, 19 voices gasping, sighing, whispering his name. He ran. Down the stairs, through the corridor, but the house breathed with him now, walls flexing with every exhale. The portraits on the walls seemed to warp, faces shifting, mouths parting to whisper his name again and again. Thomas, don't leave us. He burst into the foyer, grabbed his keys, and threw open the front door. Cold night air flooded in. Silence. For a heartbeat, he thought it was over. Then, a single breath. Behind him. He turned. All 19 dolls stood in a circle, eyes glowing faintly blue, their porcelain chests rising and falling in unison. At the center stood Margaret, her cracked face smiling. You're the 20th, dear. They found Thomas 2 days later, sitting motionless in the parlor. His lungs had collapsed, no sign of trauma, no forced entry, nothing. Just silence. His expression was peaceful. On the mantel, there were now 20 dolls. The newest one had green eyes, Thomas's color. When the estate agent came to catalogue the property, she swore she heard soft breathing in the doll room, and a man's voice whispering, "I'm still here." Some families preserve memories in photos or journals. The Ashfords use something stronger, something that still remembers how to breathe. Maybe that's what grief does, it refuses to die, even when we do. If this story made you glance at the dolls in your house, you're not alone. Tell me, would you keep them, or burn the whole room down? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back for the next story. I'll be waiting, just don't listen too closely to the breathing.